So now that we have this view controller working, let's work on adding the list view. I noticed between when I recorded the last video and this one that there were actually a couple things I needed to fix. Over here in the vehicle rental, I noticed that in the original code I actually had the color as vehicle type, and we don't want that. We want this to be color, so I fixed that in this version. So in case you've missed it, that's one of the things that I fixed. The next thing that we want to do is we know that this screen is going to be a table view controller, and so the nice thing about adding a table view controller is that it actually comes with a bunch of the things that we know we're going to use for this app. Specifically, it has prototype cell already, it has a table view there, so those are going to be really handy. In order to use it though, we need to make a new file. So I'm going to make a new Swift file. This is going to be Cocoa Touch class. It's going to be a UI table view controller. I'm going to call this list table view controller, subclass of UI table view controller, because this file is going to tell this screen, which is a table view controller, what to do. So now if we go up here to the table view, we need to tell this table view controller to use that file. So I'm going to go up here, select the table view controller, this icon right here, and I go over here and I tell it to use this new file that I've created, the list table view controller. And so what's nice about that is I can just switch this over, and now this screen is going to be told what to do by this file. And the thing that I need to do is control drag from the table view into this file. Grab the table view and control drag over up here to say that this is going to be our rentals table. And now we're going to be able to interact with this within this view controller. Let's take a quick look at this file to see why it makes sense to do this. You can see it has a lot of the table view functions that we would have to add ourselves, and it's already in here, so we don't have to type them in. So that'll be really nice. Let's set up a couple things now. One thing that we want to do is start filling out this information so that it refers to the rentals list that I've defined in this file. So I'm going to go to the list table view controller, and number of sections we're going to set as 1, and the number of rows in our section, we're going to actually make this rentals table dot count. So that's going to, let's see, oops, sorry, that should be rentals list dot count. So that's our list, and this is just going to say the number of rows in our table is going to be the number of rows in our list that we defined over here. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's now look at this function and configure the cell. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get the row. We're going to let row equal rentals list. That's our list from the other page. And the row, remember inside this function we're saying what the table should show for each row in the table, and so we want it to correspond to the information in rentals list. So I can add in index path.row as the row in the table corresponding with the row to use. And the reason we want to do this is we can now set the cell.textLabel.text to be equal to that row, which is now one of our rentals, and we can just set it equal to, how about the vehicle type. And so it's going to give us a little bit of a warning because that's an optional, so we can just do that. Okay, so well, we need to do a couple things before this is going to show our rentals in the table. First thing we're going to do is inside this view did load, we need to tell this list view controller that it's responsible for managing the functions for this rentals table. That's what this delegate means. And we need to also tell the view controller that it's responsible for supplying the data, the data that's going to go into this table. So it's going to happen here inside this view controller. So that's the first thing. Second thing we need to do is the fact that this built-in code uses this name reuse identifier for the table view cell. If we go to the storyboard and we look at our prototyped cell here, let's select it. There it is. So this is the cell. We need to tell it right here that the name of this is the same as this string. So I can actually just copy this here and paste it in as the reuse identifier. So that's the next thing. And the other thing that we need to do is before, this screen was the entry point for the app. It's the initial view controller. But I want this to be the initial view controller. So I can just drag that over, or I can select the view controller, go to this panel, and do is initial view controller here, and that'll make sure that happens. So I think with those three things, I should be able to run this app, and it will show the items in the table view. Let's try it out. So we can now see that we have the full table showing all 5 of our rentals. If I click on skateboard, though, you'll notice that it's showing car, red, rented 35 times. That's because the other view controller over here is still set to show rental 1. And what we'd like to do is instead tell this view controller to display information for whichever row in the table was selected on the previous screen. So we have a little work to do to make that happen. What we're going to do for that is, so if we scroll down here, I'm going to uncomment this code, which is inside our view controller. And so I'm going to type out some code, and you don't have to totally understand what it's doing. I'm going to try to explain it as we go. So here we go. Okay, so I've typed a bunch of code in here. Let's see what it is. If segue.identifier is this. So this means if the segue that is being run is called show specific rental. If you remember, if we select the segue, that's what this is right here. So let's go back. If that is the segue that's happening, we're going to say, if you can, let's make a new variable called the destination view controller, which just means wherever this segue is sending the app, take that destination view and try to make it the view controller that corresponds with that new screen. So set the destination to be the same as whatever code is telling that next screen what to do. And then what we want to do is on that destination view controller, we're saying that destination view controller has a property called selected rental. And we're going to set that equal to a row in our rentals list. And that row in our rentals list is going to correspond with the row in the table that was selected when we choose something in that table. Okay, so with all of that, what that should do is set the selected rental on this new view controller to be equal to the row that was selected. So I'm going to delete this now. So we can see that by selecting skateboard, it now sent all the information about the skateboard rental to the next view. So that's working the way we want it. That's great. The only thing you'll notice, there's no back button. And I definitely want to be able to go back to that list. So let's go back to this, and we're going to take this and we're going to embed it. Now that we know this system is working the way we want it, we're going to embed this in a navigation controller. So now, let's see what happens when we load the app. So you notice now, this is letting me select different items in my list. I click on it, it sends me to the next page where I can see the details of the row that I've selected. So this is really coming along.